Hey everyone, welcome to Balanced Bodybuilding Radio. I'm your host, Lee Marie, and I am a Glam Girl Bikini coach and an NPC Bikini competitor. And I'm here with my coach and my co-host.
Hey guys, Amy Enger, founder and CEO of Glam Girl Bikini.
And today we're going to talk about the 3 S's. So 3 factors that you might not know are affecting your fat loss or your muscle gain. So they are sleep, stress, and stomach or gut health. So we're going to talk about those 3 factors and how to know if you are optimizing them for your goals. But first, we have a random question. And as always, if any of you have a question for us, whether it is just a random question, a question about a topic you want us to discuss, or anything like that, you can shoot us a DM on Instagram at Balanced Bodybuilding Radio. Or if you're watching on YouTube, just go ahead and leave it in the comments. So here's my random question for today. What is one random thing that can instantly make your day better?
So yesterday I was doing check-ins and I always feel like I'm opening little presents when I see someone's check-in and they've like had good progress or they just did something really well. Those things those kind of light me up whenever. And I mean, same with like, if people will say like they really enjoyed the content of a podcast or something like that, I'm a words of affirmation person. So any sort of words of like, that something helped them or then that always makes my day.
We're the same person. Literally what I was going to say as well. It's just
That's funny.
when I get like a word of encouragement or, somebody randomly says like, oh, that really helped me. Because I'm a words of affirmation person as well. But then sometimes even just like a random stranger, if they go out of their way to say something kind, and like I was thinking about it, there's this one guy at, how they have those greeters at Walmart when you're leaving, have a nice day. And usually it's just it's or the cashier, and have a nice day and have a nice day, which I appreciate, that's cool. But there's one guy, he's this older guy and he's so sweet. He always looks me straight in the eye and he's like, have a great day, young lady, and be safe. And he just gives me this smile. And I was walk out feeling better. So just like random, just kind words from people just immediately make my day feel better. So, if you're listening, comment and write us a comment or send us a DM. Tell us what instantly makes your day better.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are some factors that definitely affect weight loss, the pace of your fat loss. Also, they can affect if you are optimally gaining muscle. If you are listening to this, if you are a bikini competitor, wellness competitor, any kind of competitor in your improvement season, and gaining muscle is your goal, these things are also going to optimize that goal. And so obviously the golden rule of fat loss or muscle gain is, hitting your macros and your training. So for fat loss, we go calories in, calories out. I mean, obviously for muscle gain, it's the same. It's just that you need to be eating enough to build that muscle. And creating that stimulus for muscle growth. But within that, so we are assuming in this podcast that you already are doing the basics. You are already hitting your nutrition. You're already hitting your training. You're already, having progressive overload, drinking your water, all of those things, right? So we have the basics down. Then there are some other things that can affect the pace of your progress. So they can slow it down. They can, kind of seem to put it on pause, or, maybe optimize it, speed it up a little bit. So first one we're going to talk about is sleep. So insufficient sleep can affect your progress in several ways. Do you want to talk about some of the ways?
Yeah. So one of the ways is if you are deficient on sleep, you're going to produce more ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone. And we know as competitors, this kind of is prevalent right after a show. We have a lot of ghrelin running through us and not so much leptin, which is our satiety hormone. So yeah, it spikes the hunger hormone.
which just makes it harder. So if you're like the type of person, especially for competitors, we are usually the type of people that can just grind through. I know one week you told me just white knuckle it through because I was like extra hungry, and we
I
can
know.
do that. But if we can optimize it, if we can make it a little easier on ourselves, that's always good. So I definitely notice more hunger when I'm sleep deprived.
Yes.
So sleep also enables something called lipogenesis, which is fat synthesis in the digestive system. So basically optimizing using fat for energy or fuel instead of storing it. So think about sleep as fat burning, not really, but optimizing your use of fat for energy.
Yeah. And similar to how you get that hunger hormone, when you're sleep deprived, you start craving different types of sweets or highly palatable foods that are high in sugars, high in fat. And that's just kind of our body's defense mechanism when it comes to not taking care of like the basic needs of our body. We start to crave things that we probably don't actually need for energy, but our body's like signaling that there's something going awry
Mhm.
without the sleep.
Especially if it's late at night too. Like you should
Yeah.
be going to bed. Sometimes
Mhm.
the easiest thing if you're having this crazy craving late at night is just go to bed.
Yeah, just go to bed.
And then you can dream about it. You can eat it in your dream. That's
Which has
true.
happened to me. I have like nightmares when I'm in prep that I've eaten like a whole cake or something. And I wake up, I'm like, oh my gosh, did I do that?
And then you're like, shoot, I should have just enjoyed it in the dream. Okay, so then also another factor is that we may move less throughout the day. So burning less overall calories. So let's say you're super disciplined, you're still hitting up the gym, you're still doing your cardio, but you might have less steps, which is another reason why we track steps. A lot of the time, I always encourage my clients to watch their step count. And then naturally, just moving less around the house, doing less getting up to move around, all of those little movements do add up. So if you're going, if you're being less active, then, you might be taking yourself a little bit out of that calorie deficit as well.
Yeah, you kind of go into sloth mode, and then also it affects your training. So you're not like as motivated, you're not as intentional when you go into the gym with your lifts, and you're more prone to injuries, and you're just not going to push 100% as hard. So, sometimes that's why we have things like pre-workout and caffeine, just because it does really help us push a little bit harder in the gym at times if we're not sleepy.
Right. Right, exactly. Okay, so those are some of the ways that sleep can hinder us from reaching our goals as fast as we want to or on track. So then one really big factor in trying to get enough sleep is something we call sleep hygiene, which is basically, it just means setting yourself up for optimal sleep. So your optimal night of sleep. But
Mhm.
first, I just want to mention that I really do think that different people need different amounts of sleep. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think the standard though, like 7 to 9 is like pretty
That's a pretty big
solid.
range.
I think some people think that they can survive on like 4 to 6, but it's because they've grinded so hard and like so long that they don't realize probably that it would help them. But yeah, I do think there's some people like myself, and I think yourself as well. Like we could go 8 to 10, and that's still, I mean, I'm like an old lady. I go to bed
Yep.
pretty
Yep.
early.
But
So
my optimal would be like 9 to 10.
yeah.
Or, I could do 8 and then maybe every 2 weeks, I'll literally sleep 12
Yeah.
if
Wow.
my body functions on it.
That's awesome. Yeah. So the main thing is like you want to keep your circadian rhythms consistent. So you want to try to pick a consistent bedtime. So your body is used to, producing the melatonin and reducing the cortisol in a certain rhythm. Whereas like a shift worker and things like that, they're going to be inconsistent, and it's going to be hard to get that solid REM sleep, which is
Mhm.
where the rapid eye movement occurs, where your adrenals reset, and where optimal muscle growth happens. So try your best to get up at consistent times, even if it's like an off day, like on the weekend and things, try your best to go to bed like at a similar time as you would during the week, and then vice versa, like when you wake up, trying to keep it pretty consistent.
Okay, so then I have a question. Going back to what I was saying, if I can consistently get 8 hours, then once every 2 weeks I get like 12, is that messing up that consistency? Or once in a while, is that okay?
I think that does play a factor. I do think, like, some people will try to, like, if they're a shift worker and they've gotten like 4 to 6 hours like throughout the week, and then they like try to catch up on the weekends. I don't think it necessarily like really helps your body that much. I mean, it's better than keeping it all 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I don't think you can like actually catch up on sleep just by sleeping longer a couple of times a week and then like keeping it shorter. It's better to
Right.
have like that consistency across the board as much as you can, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Okay, so the next thing, the next little tip for sleep hygiene is to make sure your bedroom is quiet, dark, relaxing, and at a comfortable temperature.
Mhm.
So sometimes it bothers me to hear little sounds, like outside, like especially if I'm like at a hotel, or currently I have an apartment. So if my neighbors are
Yes.
being loud or anything, so sometimes I will actually sleep with a fan on, and that just helps. Just that little bit of noise helps.
Hmm.
I always make sure that it's dark. I used to actually work overnights, but it was consistent. So I always worked overnights, and I just always slept, 7-ish a.m. to like 3 p.m. or whatever. But I got like blackout curtains, and I lived in a basement, and it was like pitch black. And that's super, or like I'll wear an eye mask too if
Hmm.
I need to. Um, Relaxing, I guess that would maybe just have to do with the environment. Of your room. Maybe if your room is just like piles of mess and that's stressful to you, maybe let's make it more of a relaxing environment. And then a comfortable temperature. I don't know about you, but I am a hot sleeper. So I need my room to be cold. Otherwise, it's really hard for me to fall asleep.
Yeah, they say it's 68 degrees Fahrenheit is the optimal temperature for rest, because whenever you get hot at night, you'll notice that you'll have interrupted sleep.
Yeah.
So it's good to keep a cool temperature, like you said, room darkening shades, your melanopsin through your eye, like the rising and setting of the sun really does start releasing either cortisol when the sun's rising, and then it also releases melatonin once the sun starts setting. And those receptor sites, in the melanopsin, if you can make sure that your room is dark, then again, it's not gonna like if there's a bright light shining or something like that, it's definitely going to give you interrupted sleep, because your body's natural signals of like the sun coming up will be kind of confused, which brings us to our next point on the screens and electronic devices. Again, that melanopsin, when you're looking at a screen, it provides a stimulus to tell you that you're not supposed to be, like, it's going to release more cortisol than it is going to be releasing melatonin. So when you have the TV on at night and you fall asleep that way, it's not going to be a like good solid REM sleep. So even if you have to get like short amounts of sleep, quality sleep makes a difference, versus like interrupted for a long period of time. So anything like with your phones and all that, trying to put it on like do not disturb an hour before bed is the guideline. And then if you have to have some sort of screen, blue light blockers would be ideal. So if you have glasses that will at least protect your eyes from that blue light stimulation, would be a good idea as well.
I was going to mention this before with the first tip, but then you brought it back. So that REM sleep that we want to get into, I have read that one way that you can know that you're in REM sleep is that that's the sleep where you're dreaming.
Yeah,
Is,
it's
is
good.
that true?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
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 So that's a good way to know if you've gotten like a good night's sleep, if you have those dreams. I know
Yeah.
there's things like you can get, like Whoop straps or something that like monitor your sleep and tell you how much, but
Uh-huh.
it's also a good way of knowing.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so then the next one is to avoid large meals, caffeine, and alcohol before bedtime. So I feel like caffeine, we all kind of know that. Um, and it's really funny because my dad, all growing up, would always say like caffeine just didn't affect him like that. And I mean, he would drink a cup of coffee after supper every single day.
Oh,
And he'd be
wow.
like, just go to sleep. But the other thing about my dad is all through growing up, he consistently wakes up around 3 a.m. and he'll get up, he'll take a shower, he'll like read a couple of books, and then he'll go back to sleep for a couple hours. And sometimes the effects of caffeine are actually delayed in
Hmm.
your system. And so I figured that out like kind of later in life when I actually started studying this stuff. And I was like, Dad, I wonder if that's why you don't sleep the whole night. Like you can go to sleep
Hmm.
at 10 or whatever and then stay asleep for maybe 5 hours, but then you wake up again. And it might be because of that caffeine. So you
Yeah.
want to avoid caffeine, even if you think you're the type of person that's like, man, I could drink a soda and go straight to sleep. It might disrupt the quality of sleep and the length that you stay asleep. Avoiding large meals I don't necessarily think you have to go to bed on a completely empty stomach. I think sometimes for me that disrupts my sleep a little bit too. But if you're going to eat, have something light that's going to not take a lot to digest. If I eat a big meal like right before bed, like a couple of times I've done that just because I had crazy days and then I had a lot of macros that I needed to eat, I will actually like a lot of the times I'll wake up in the middle of the night kind of in a cold sweat. And it's like my metabolism is just burning through trying to burn off all this food, but it's disrupting my sleep. And then alcohol as well can definitely disrupt your sleep levels. And that's another thing just in our culture, a lot of the time, you drink at night. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And both like carbs and alcohol increase body temperature, which is the biggest factor in disrupted sleep. And then alcohol contributes, where we talked about on the alcohol podcast, is just the frequency of going to the bathroom as well, because it is a liquid. And like you said, a lot of people like to do that at night. So yeah, if you're going to eat later at night, probably just like lower on the carbs, like not that saying that, like if it's not the myth like, oh, if you eat carbs at night, you're going to gain weight. No, it's just, it will interrupt your sleep a little bit because it will elevate your temperature to break that down. So, all
so
right.
then last point.
Yeah. So get some exercise. So just being physically active during the day is going to help you fall asleep more at night. And those of you that train hard can probably attest that you're by working hard, you're going to go to sleep hard as well. So
Definitely. Okay, so super important to be getting our sleep. So next S we want to talk about is stress.
yeah.
So I think we can all pretty much say that we have some form of stress in our lives. And stress can affect your body, it can affect your mood, and it can affect your behavior. So your body, you can get muscle tension. A lot of the time we can hold it in like our neck and shoulders if we're stressed.
Hmm.
Um, it can bring on headaches, chest pain, fatigue, a change in your sex drive, upset stomach. If you have like a high anxiety, I've definitely had this one before where your stomach is just in knots. It is not pleasant. And then it can also affect your sleep. So going back to the first thing. And so that's a lot of the ways it can affect your body. It can affect your mood, with anxiety, restlessness, lacking motivation, things like that. And then it can affect your behavior. So then that goes back to doing the basics, overeating, undereating, having, outbursts or misusing, drugs or alcohol or food, tobacco use, exercising less, just some of the things that can affect your lifestyle that are not going to set you up for hitting your goals optimally. So, how do we manage stress, right? We all have stress in our lives, but there are some things that you can do, tips to manage stress. So, the first one is something that most of us probably already do that listen to this podcast is getting regular physical activity. So, using the gym as an outlet for stress is one of my favorite things about being a competitor, but also just getting outside, getting in the sun, getting my cardio in, getting my steps in. Definitely a good way to manage stress.
Yeah, it produces endorphins. So those, happy hormones, but there is the other side of it too, that physical activity is a stress on the body. It's eustress, which is a positive stress. But if you get too much of anything, it can be bad. So the devil's in the dosage. So overtraining too can cause a lot of stress too. So just be careful with that and make sure you do point number 2, which is add in relaxation techniques such as like deep breathing, meditation, yoga, all those different things like massage. Those are going to help bring your CNS down and help you to relax and hopefully take away some of that muscle tension that you were talking about.
Yep. Okay. So next point is actually keeping a sense of humor. And I think you can think about this a couple of ways. I think one way is to just kind of take a step back from the stressful situation, whether it's like your job or, something with finances or, you're moving or something like that. Just take a step back and just realize like in the big picture of things, you're going to get through it. It's okay. But then also even just like finding like go scroll, find some funny memes or watch a comedy or, read a joke book or something, do something that just like get those like crazy like laugh till you cry moments really does help. It probably releases the same, I don't know, happy hormones or something like that.
Yeah, laughter is the best medicine, right?
Exactly. Yep. And I definitely agree with that. Keeping a sense of humor.
Yeah. And then spending time with friends and family can definitely do that for you. And just setting aside time for like hobbies that you enjoy, such as reading, relaxing, listening to music, whatever that may be. So
I love it. Okay, so we're managing our stress. So last S that we're going to talk about is your stomach or your gut health. So your digestion actually plays a huge role in your overall health, physically and mentally. It's actually known as your second brain. If you've ever heard of like the phrase having a gut feeling, it's actually based in science. So your gut and your brain talk to each other. But then it also has to do with, absorbing nutrients from the foods that you eat. So your general health, which also affects your fat loss. But then if we're just talking weight loss in general, if you are not digesting foods well, the scale is not going to go down because, you're not regularly using the bathroom, like passing those foods through. If you're getting like bloated or constipated or anything like that, that's definitely not healthy or going to help you see that scale go down. So some things that you can do for optimal gut health.
Yeah. So just watching what kinds of foods that you're putting in your body. So thinking of your gut as a garden, you don't want to put a bunch of weeds. You want to plant like a wide variety of, nutrients, and fruits and vegetables are going to give you a good, healthy gut population and gut flora so that you can, like you said, a lot of your hormones are processed in your gut, like your thyroid, and that regulates your metabolism, your ability to build muscle. So if your gut's not functioning properly, you're not going to be able to package out like the bad metabolites of estrogen and things like that. So you want it to be working optimally and limiting any sort of processed foods that could cause inflammation and like leaky gut and things like that. It'd be really important to kind of focus on those really like wide variety, single ingredient foods to populate and put like a good garden there versus like a bunch of weeds.
Yeah. And I mean, again, like the listeners of the show are going to be competitors in their improvement season or, lifestyle, just losing on a weight loss journey or on a journey to get healthier. So of course we're going to say, oh, limit sugar and ultra processed foods. And we think donuts and, cake and cookies, like we're not eating that. Right. But I mean, I even think like how many protein bars have I been eating? How many of these like protein type things or extra snacks that are processed and fit my macros. But I should, and it doesn't mean I have to cut those out, but making sure that they're not like more or a bigger percentage than those whole natural food sources.
Sure.
Too.
Yeah.
So then make sure you're eating gut friendly foods or basically fiber rich foods. So I actually track my fiber. I have most of my clients watching their fiber levels, and I do best on a pretty high fiber diet. So, which is easy for me because I eat a lot of, vegetables and like oats and things like that help me
Yeah.
hit my fiber. But it's definitely a good thing to watch if you're tracking your food, to watch the amount of fiber that you're getting. Consistency is really big, but then also making sure that you're getting enough for your body.
Yeah. And it depends on your height and your weight and your gender and all that. But like most females will fall between the like 20 to 30 grams of fiber as the daily recommended value. A 6-foot male that's like 200 pounds, he's going to need closer to like 40 grams of fiber. So it is a little bit dependent on who you are, but also make sure you're getting a mixture of soluble and insoluble, because sometimes you can have a little bit too much of the scrub brush, which is like the roughage that is insoluble. Whereas you need like the gel that actually forms the stool. So like you said, your oatmeals, your avocado and things like that, it's going to form the stool, not just necessarily be the scrub brush and like, get things out and
Salad
pour water into the colon.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a really good point too.
Yeah. And we talked about a little bit about bacteria and just giving them the right types of foods, so that you are populating a good garden. Did you want to talk about some of the fermented foods that have some natural like probiotics that would actually like plant some good seeds of population into a good, healthy flora?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the good, like live, good bacteria friendly foods are like Greek yogurt, um,
Mhm.
or kefir, which is like a yogurt drink. And it's
Mhm.
usually in the store right by the yogurts.
Mhm.
Kombucha, which is a fermented tea drink, and it gets really like bubbly, almost like a sparkling water. It's
Mhm.
really good. Kimchi, which I only recently discovered the last few years, because my sister is actually married to a South Korean, and so they
Oh,
they
okay.
eat a lot of kimchi, and it's a Korean pickled vegetable, and it's somewhat spicy. It's really good. It smells intense, but it tastes really good. So that's like a Korean style of pickled vegetable, and then there's sauerkraut, which I grew up eating because it's German, and that's a
Yeah.
German pickled cabbage. And so both of those really high. There's other pickles that are good with bacteria. Miso, which is
That's
based in
very,
like soups and things like that.
yeah, Japan has a
Yeah,
lot of, yeah, I
yeah,
have a Japanese client that likes miso
yeah. Oh,
for
it's so good.
breakfast.
I love it. Yep. And then aged unpasteurized cheese. This is what I'm not as familiar with. What would you give some examples for this? Like, are they
Um,
talking about hard cheese? Are we
so we
thinking?
don't get a lot of unpasteurized products here in the
Right.
United
That's
States
a good
because of
point.
the FDA. So these are the cheeses that are in France that are kind of like illegal, you know what I mean? So that's
Okay.
probably why you haven't been exposed to
Yeah.
those, just
More
because
common
the
ones,
FDA.
like Greek yogurt or kombucha or like sauerkraut, or get some
Yeah, like
kim.
those are pasteurized, but yeah, there's some unpasteurized, I'm sure as well. And then I kind of already talked about the last point, but eat that diverse diet and making sure that that's on point. Because if you're not having daily bowel movements, and that's one of our questions in our check-in journal is, what is your digestion like? And if people are telling me that they're going to the bathroom, a couple of times a week, that's a serious problem. If you're not having a bowel movement every day, that's a serious problem. You're not going to be able to have good, consistent fat loss if you are not having daily bowel movements. So, making sure that they're healthy, like not diarrhea and not constipation, not bloating. You want to make sure that everything's on point there, to be able to like get to your goals and fat loss. And like if I were to kind of suggest a supplement that really helps like with leaky gut and repairing the gut lining, it would be from First Form, and it's called GI Advantage. And that one, I've noticed big changes when people implement that. It it does a really good job of like getting more consistent bowel movements. So that's like something that I do recommend to my clients on the supplement side of things.
Mhm.
Are there
That's
any
awesome.
other supplements for like stress or that you would recommend to your clients?
So I do know about there was one I took. I believe I was in the middle of prep and I was having a hard time sleeping. And so I do
Mhm.
think sometimes sleep and stress can be related as well.
Yeah.
And so I took a supplement from First Form called Core 21.
Uh-huh.
And that one really helped. I know, like, I've taken melatonin before and it does nothing for me. I've just never noticed a difference. With this one, when I took Core 21, what it did was I would be able to fall asleep at, for the first hour or two, but then I would wake up and
Uh-huh.
then I'd be up for an hour or two. And so what it did was it just helped keep me asleep. And I know one of the things it does is like reduce cortisol, which
Hmm.
helps sleep. But it also has to do with your stress. It's your stress hormone. That is one that I like to recommend if someone's having a hard time sleeping. Then another one that I actually just like recommending for if you are having a hard time like using the bathroom regularly and you're watching, the types of foods you eat and your fiber and everything is a magnesium supplement.
Oh yeah.
And that's good for muscle relaxation and stuff too. I know my mom takes it every night for muscle cramps. She gets muscle cramps in
Hmm.
her legs, but if she's taking magnesium every night, she's fine. But when I take it, it helps relax the muscles in my digestion and it
Yeah.
really helps me stay regular. And so I think it's basically the same concept, but that's a really good one to be on as well.
And these kind of all are paired together. I think all three of these S's work in a network
Yeah.
because if you're not getting proper amounts of sleep, if your body's stressed out, you are going to get constipated or you're going to have diarrhea, like if you have IBS because you're so anxious and stressed. So all three of these kind of play a role and they kind of feed off of one another. So it's really important to address those underlying things if you are doing if like you're checking off all the boxes so to speak where you're getting the training in like you're creating a caloric deficit by being on point with your nutrition, you're getting your water in, all those things, you're hitting them. These are some other like I guess lesser known or less glamorous types of avenues that as part of like our coaching, that's something that we also have in our journal is like how many hours of sleep you're having, what is your mental state. There's reasons why we ask those questions in our check-in journal because digestion, sleep, and stress have a huge role in the progress that you're going to make as our clients. So to us it's very important, and that's like something that I think even if you're not getting coached by somebody, it's something to monitor if you want good results. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it all kind of boils down to overall health. And like you said, it's not as glamorous as, losing weight really fast or looking really great, but
yeah,
your deep inner health is so important. If that's not optimized, if that is tanked, you're not going to be able to reach your optimal physique. Or even if you do lose some weight, you're not going to be able to maintain it, or at least not easily. So focus
yeah,
on your whole entire health to optimize those things. Whether your goal is fat loss or muscle gain, I think we could say all of these things to optimize building muscle. If you're, watching this, listening to this, and you're in your improvement season and you want to optimize building good muscle before your next prep too.
yeah, yeah, love it. All
So
right.
that's our podcast for today. Did you have any last minute announcements or anything before we close out?
I don't think so. I'm just excited when this releases. We'll have started day one of our Glam and Grit challenge. So I'm pretty excited about that coming up here for the next 90 days. I know we're both going to participate, and the tank tops should be in this week for our rating and reviews. So we will be getting those out to all of you. So if you do have a rating and review that you post, please take a screenshot of it, share it on your story, tag us at Balanced Bodybuilding Radio on Instagram. Let us know. And then you can shoot us a DM as to like what size you want and what your address is, so we can send that your way as a thank you. So yeah, that's all the announcements I had.
Perfect. Okay. Well, if you want to work with us, if you want to join the team, you can go to glamgirlbikini.com and click the Get Started button. And you can follow us on Instagram at Balanced Bodybuilding Radio. Look us up on YouTube. Leave us a comment, question, topic that you want us to speak on. But until next time, thank you so much for listening.
Bye.